Hey, what's going on, everyone? Oh shit, I'm mirroring myself somewhere, I think. I'm Nick Paro. This is Banner and Backbone. We are here with Rachel from This Woman Votes and Frederic Poag from Missives from a Middle Aged Man as we do a Powerful Voices episode and get Rachel and Fred together for the first time while we
Yay.
talk generative AI in the military and the dangers that are going on right now, and the integration of Mecha Hitler Grok into our Pentagon for chaos incarnate and white supremacy policies as baked into the bias of the system. Hey, Rachel. With that framing, Fred. Hey, Rachel. Hey, Fred. How are you guys doing?
Having a great day.
You know what I love about Grok is the fact that when it started, Elon Musk was so fragile because it told him the truth about, white replacement theory. He said, no, we've got to change it till it matches what I think. It's like fantastic.
It's also showing apparent child porn or like sexualization of children now in very explicit ways in like minimal clothing and like amplified versions of themselves. That's really fucking disgusting.
That started out by a woman posted an image of her out with friends, I believe, and someone commented at Grok, "Put this bitch in a bikini."
Wow.
And Grok turned around and said, "Here is said woman in a bikini." And then someone else said, and it just sort of, like all things in an environment engineered for both outrage and engagement, it did the same thing. And so I was reading one of the articles, and a woman put her own picture from her first communion up and said, "Put her in a bikini." And it produced one of the most uncomfortable images I've ever looked at in my life. I cannot begin to tell you, and anybody who's read anything I've ever written, I work with AI. I have been using machine learning since 2013 with my first implementation. I have been in this business since before Sam Altman had the little chat GPT in mind, right? I've been doing this for a really long time. Grok is exponentially worse than anything else on this planet. And it is an existential threat. And when I saw them putting together Gemini on the GenAI, you and I and Shane talked last month, I was like, yeah, most of the time, my response to people worrying about AI is like, look, here's what you need to look at. This is how this is what it's good for. For the most part, I take a pretty measured response because I've been in this business a long time. But when I saw it go into the military, I was immediately like, oh, hold on. Emotional fluency in a high stress environment is dangerous. This is dangerous. But when I saw the piece on Grok, when I saw the release on Grok, and by the way, most of media is not treating this as anything other than a procurement event. It's just procurement. It's just military procurement. Fox Business did a little, like literally just a reprint of the press release. Defense Scoop did a little thing on it. Nobody seems worried about it. That worries me.
Well, we've gotten so conditioned in our culture to view that anything that the military procures or does is seen as a good or benefit to society, when
Right.
most of the time it absolutely isn't.
Yeah.
And I reference this thinker from the 1960s, Thomas Kuhn, all the time. He's one of the when I studied him in college, he was one of the had a profound impact on me and a lot of the phrases we use today come from Kuhn, which is paradigm shift, all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And the big central thing that he did was he said that it's this notion that science is value free, right? Because
Right,
a
that
lot
is
of us
neutral,
think,
right?
that a lot of us think that we have this sort of Star Trek kind of awe around science, even on our side of the fence, where it's these people with big brains that are in a lab that are just trying to expand the borders, or the frontiers of human understanding. And that's not really how it works. Like, a lot of times it has a political component to it. Like, the internet was developed in the DoD.
Yeah, yeah,
And
DARPA. I did a whole thing
right,
on
Yeah,
it last week.
DARPANET was the original.
Yep.
right. And so a lot of these things that have come out have been for other purposes. And now what we're seeing, and so again, the question that's absolutely not going to be asked by the media, which is most of it is corporate owned, and thus, because they want to maintain access, state run at this point, de facto state run by a fascist Trump regime. They're absolutely, to your point, Rachel, they're not going to question it. Like, they're going to just say, oh, wow, isn't this wonderful? But yet I have friends like yourself that have worked in sort of the AI space before it was AI. I had a friend of mine, he wrote a paper about the future of AI in the 90s when he was at Johns Hopkins.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been in computer science since then. And he works with Gemini, and so does his wife. And they talk about, like, yeah, it's getting demonstrably worse, because it's literally just they've reached the end of what we can it can pull, and so it's just regurgitating, and it's just creating churn and recycling the nonsense.
Yeah.
And you look at Grok, who is in Twitter, which, God, what that's turned into.
What a cesspool.
Right. And so you want to give, to your point, you want to give this to our military, where they have to make real-time decisions, real-time life and death decisions on a system that at times just lies to you, because it can't come up with an answer.
With emotional fluency, right? I mean, that's part of the problem, is it lies with this bold confidence in kind of the same way that you see some of the most compelling political characters, right? They can stand on a stage and look you dead in the eye and lie to your face, and everybody's just lapping it up because.
Can you give me an example? I've never seen a political figure in our politics lie to the American people.
I mean, look,
No.
I don't need to get
never. I've never
start
seen
with
that.
Charlie Kirk. That man could stand and own a stage and confidently just spew the most deceitful rhetoric. And people lap it up because, in general, the public will take strong and wrong every day of the week.
Nice. Yeah.
Which is why we need to be strong and right.
We need to be strong and right. And we need to be assertively strong and right, which is why, I'm writing what I'm writing, because I feel like there's a couple of things. First of all, this is my nerddom, right? I've been doing this for a really long time. But also, I feel like so much of it is either driven toward fear, because there is an explicit need to erode truth, right? But then there's also sort of this willingness to just be fed the information from whatever your talking head of choices, and most of those talking heads don't even know. And I'm going to say that. The part of the reason that mainstream media isn't covering the procurement piece or anything beyond procurement for AI is that they don't understand the complexity of it. Nobody's sitting around thinking, well, what is the epistemological impact here? But epistemology matters. Epistemics in the real world, for whoever's paying attention, like, it's epistemics is just the understanding of how you know what you know, right?
Yeah.
And so when you are trying to discern the difference between information and truth, it's necessary. And when you think about how we approach it, institutions, in particular government institutions, run on this. They run on understanding what's real so that you can make good choices that don't come back on you.
And one of the
Go ahead.
One of the scary things of all of this is that this system that is now being integrated into the military's tooling is fed information and real world data through X. That's
Right.
where it gets
Which
its
which is
data from, which
yes.
is one of the most radically like radically like known like extreme disinformation machines in the world. They propagandize
Yep.
everything, which means all of the generative AI information that it's building its database and learning off of is through hate. Literally, when Grok was allowed to start generating for itself, it turned itself into Mecha Hitler off of X.
In less
Like,
than 24 hours.
in less than 24 hours, it turned
Less
itself
than
into
24
Mecha
hours.
Hitler. And now we've got pictures of abusive images of children and in very sexualized positions. One of our listeners in the chat said it looks like they did it to Renee Green after she died. It's
Yeah.
all of that stuff. Is they made people went in and made bikini images and sexualized images of a dead woman in a fucking car who was just brutally murdered and executed. And that is the type of information that is going to get fed into a generative AI system for the military, which means they're going to propagandize that as part of the tooling.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I mean, let me just make one quick point, Fred. Think about sort of the military decision-making process. It's nonlinear, it's chaotic. You have little small errors that become mass problems, and AI outputs are going to amplify all of that. And when you layer Grok, I mean, hallucinations out of Gemini was one problem, right? But the gross manipulation and the behavior amplification that you get from Grok is extraordinary.
Well, and over half the traffic on the internet, too, real quick point, is bots. What is it, like 54% of traffic on the internet is bots, and a lot of that focuses in on X. So it's not even human traffic or human interaction that it's building and learning off of. It's learning off of its own other machines interacting with it, which makes it even more dangerous.
Yep.
I mean, it's interesting because it's it reminds me of there's a movie, I believe it was called War Games in the 1980s. Matthew Broderick, Ali Sheedy, and
would you like to play a game?
Yeah, the premise of it is a kid hacks into like I think it's like NORAD defense grid, and he's like, I was like, oh, I don't want to play chess. It's like I want to play thermonuclear war. And he almost like starts thermonuclear war because the computer believes like it's going to imminently be attacked. And so but like it's crazy how like that's sort of prescient right now. But the other thing too is like we've already seen this in a real world outside of the military, where the stakes are they're real, but they're not nearly as high. Where it's like, so Wendy's announced they're closing 8,000 locations, and they were also one of the fast food chains that instituted surge pricing with AI. And it's like, gee, how did that work out for your franchisees? That worked out really good. Oh no, it didn't. And so, so now you add it to where it's like, oh yeah, let's take this thing that's flawed and let's do a war game scenario where we give it access to nuclear weapons, or at least the decision to like, hey, you should do this, this, and this based on this. Especially with this flawed, horrible stuff coming out of like the fact that it's even linked to social media blows my mind.
So
blows my mind.
Yeah. So here's a question for both of you on this. And Rachel, I want from like an epistemic perspective in this, and like and Fred, from your social understandings, because you do a lot of social commentary and like societal commentary in general, is do we need to be flooding X? Like, this is the system that is teaching the military and brainwashing and going to be propagandizing orders, defining what is legal and not legal based on vibes. Like, we're literally turning the military into vibe action. Like, that's what we're fucking doing. And it's dangerous as shit. Do we need to be getting back onto those tools that we hate and we're trying to distance ourselves from, yet they're
I'm
the tools now being used to make it. So do we have to counter it by flooding their zone?
I'm torn on that. First of all, you couldn't pay me.
That's my
I'd
response too.
I'd rather swim in a puddle of shit, frankly.
I mean, we
You know
already
what I mean?
are, so
But the other side of this is it isn't us, right? There is an enormous amount of money that is going into the continuing epistemic war, and I have an entire series on how to recognize what epistemic war looks like, right? And the reality is that the right has an entire. I think you either saw or shared my piece on when X enabled location and made location visible, right?
Yeah.
Like what you have to realize is that 70% of MAGA influencers are not American. Little blonde MAGA Barbie from Texas is in fucking Russia,
yeah.
right?
Yep.
That is explicit epistemic warfare, and the entirety of the Grok platform, or the X platform, is an epistemic war engine, right?
So
So in order to combat that, we would need an equivalent force on the left to flood the zone, and that costs money, and it costs resources, and it costs time. Those aren't real people. Those are just bots generating bot after bot after bot. They're literally self-replicating bots. And at the end of the day, the left is not spending that kind of money on what needs to be done to take that platform over. So I wouldn't bother.
okay.
I mean, if I had
That's a fair response.
that thing would be flooded.
That's a
Flooded.
fair response because bots are expensive, and I see people keep saying we need to have bot farms. Basically,
Yes.
realistically, yes, we
We
do, but I
yes.
don't have $1 million to a month to run a bot farm
No.
because that's what it fucking costs on a low
Right.
end. Like they're not cheap. They're
The
not
fact
cheap
that
because
nobody in the Nordics has decided, you know what, screw this goddamn America. Why haven't, you know what I mean? Like someone on the legitimate left, someone who provides social safety nets, who understands what's going on, but they're all like, well, that's not our business. That's their business.
I think that, and again, this may be my,
Mhm.
sort of simple country way of thinking about things, but I think the thing that is going to run into these techno-fascist billionaires is reality. So, and where I'm going with that is this: is like one of the things with AI that's been promised to, in order to sell it and to get all the money to pump into it. Same thing with cryptocurrency, and you saw this with driverless cars and Neuralink and blah 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 blah. It's
Mhm.
like this is going to take us to Star Trek. This is going to take us to the cashless society, the utopia, the next involvement of, or the next evolution of humanity, and it simply hasn't. And while that may change in the future, in the short term it's not. So like there was an NPR piece that came out today, like the other day, and it said, and here was the propaganda, and this is part of the media literacy that other countries are now teaching their kids, teaching their citizens.
Yep.
Is they said the US had a robust growth at the end of the year for the economy, right? But if you dig into the article outside of the title, it is from the Commerce Department. What was that spending? AI spending,
Military.
AI spending, and
Yep.
pharmaceuticals and healthcare spending,
Yep.
because all that went up before the ACA dropped or as it dropped.
Right.
So that's not really economic growth. And the thing about it is we've reached this place where, hey, good times are coming, they're coming, and it's just not there. It's not going to happen. Or you have this generative AI and it says, well, Grok says it's this. And it's like, sure, but it's not.
Yeah.
And it's not. And so what's increasingly happening, and you've seen this in the propaganda that's fed to us, is you have like what Rachel Maddow called there's Earth One, and then like MAGA Earth. That's completely fucking delusional. They have long since passed and left the empirical, the known reality. And you're now seeing it in the billionaire class. I think one of the reasons, and I've thought about this, why Trump, and suddenly there's this very jingoistic, very wartime posture, is the economy's getting ready to crash. And the thing about fascism is you have to deliver for your side. Trump is not delivering for not only his base of support, soon he's not going to deliver for his billionaire backers, because this just happened. Heather Cox Richardson pointed it out. So Spotify has stopped taking money and will not run ads for ICE recruitment.
Right.
So again, like they got $130 billion. Their advertising budget is insane. So they're willing to drop a lot of money. And even Spotify said, nope. Even with Joe Rogan, nope, can't do it, because consumer spending still makes up the biggest majority of the economy. And that's what they're losing, because we don't have. Go ahead.
It isn't like we can't, right?
Right.
Like I stopped I stopped shopping at Amazon, right? In 2024, I spent over $8,000 on Amazon. Last year, I spent $0 on Amazon. I also made an explicit effort to help my clients get off of AWS and moved them onto better platforms that weren't supporting shitty government, right? But I think the reality is, and Nick had mentioned sort of this idea of like, you know, a big chunk of what I'm writing about this year and intentionally taking on this year is white supremacy. And whether you're white, black, indigenous, male, female, we are all slaves to power.
Yeah.
The black community has understood their proximity to enslavement. The white community doesn't recognize their enslavement because the chains and whips are money and healthcare and safety. And so we haven't recognized it yet. Some of us, I've very clearly recognized it. But like, if you can't walk away without taking a beating, are you free?
Yeah.
You know,
are you free if you cannot sit in your vehicle, not blocking a road, safely protesting and safely speaking up for your community? Right. Are you free if the result of that is execution because you did not immediately comply with a masked person who is or could not have been an ICE agent, because there have been incidents already of masked individuals dressed up as ICE agents kidnapping people.
Yep.
So you cannot assume that they are a federal agent because they're not showing their badges. She did all the, like Nicole or Renee Nicole Good is all of us who would have done the right thing. She stood up for her First Amendment right, and she was executed for it. She wasn't doing anything. She was complying with two of the officers who said move, move, move. She was doing what they said, and they fucking
there was conflicting direction, and there was all sorts of stuff.
And then, so I want to get your thoughts on this, because I did an in-depth analysis with Zev Shalev into the doctored video that was put out on from Trump's Truth Social, where he said, where they show that far away grainy image, and it looks like there's an extra body or bottom of a body in front of the vehicle right as she starts pulling and turning.
Yeah.
But if you look at the video that's actually there, and that video was processed through Rumble, which Trump's media company has an agreement with and has a lot of Russian backing. And
what a shock.
What a shock. So here's an interesting question on this. So Trump's social is separate from Grok. Grok doesn't technically learn off of Trump's social unless it is pointed there by, say, links or other things. Do either of you think that the impetus will be, it will be forced in some way where Grok will have to assimilate into a Trump-owned company and Trump media of some sort?
I think that it isn't a force. I think that it's really easy for things to be cross-linked across platforms. That's simple. I wish more people would share my shit across other platforms that I don't prefer to participate in, but whatever. Like, but I think it's going to be voluntary, right? Because Trump has a vested interest in getting their message out to as many people as possible. Grok and X have a vested interest in continuing to spread tyranny. That's how, Elon maintains part of his power. I mean, these Elon is a great example. These men are sovereign. They own sovereign platforms. They own sovereign infrastructure. Whether it's Larry Page at Google, whether it's Larry Ellison at Oracle, or Elon Musk, these are sovereign individuals. You should not be able to own satellite infrastructure, right? Part of what I wrote early in the week was sort of and it started with this idea of the internet, right? Internet started out of DoD and ARPANET, DARPA, kind of the transition through there. The government has spent hundreds of millions of dollars on essentially de-risking early innovation and basic science, right? And then what happens is that basic science, all of that sort of de-risked innovation gets added into some new broader innovation, and then the government gets nothing back from it.
Right.
But then all of these companies build these massive billion-dollar platforms on infrastructure that they did not build. So now you have Google, you have Meta. Meta's another great example. This is sovereign infrastructure built on basic innovation that the American government funded in the 60s and 70s and 80s, right? None of this shit would have existed had the American government not initially funded it. And now we're in an environment where the American government is pulling back the reins on all basic science science funding. They're not doing any of this. And this is going to create generational impact to our ability to innovate going forward. China is spending $500 billion on future innovation. Capital doesn't spend money that way. Capital does not spend risky money like that. They let the American government risk their funds early on in kind of the weird scientists, do Cricket's orgasm or whatever thing that
basic
they're
research
funding, right?
Like basic research stuff.
Basic research. And it's the thing that everybody's like, that everybody picks apart and makes fun of. But all of that stuff builds onto true innovation 1 decade, 2 decades, 3 decades later. And so the impact of that is going to be enormous. As we move into the future, we are absolutely going to be shitting the bed and kissing the ass of the Chinese, because they are going to lap us again and again and again, because these dum-dums did not want to be taxed for things.
It's fascinating, because I think what we can do is we can use the Trump argument, their justification that they want to go into Venezuela, where it's, oh, well, American companies used to own this oil infrastructure. The country took it and nationalized it. Therefore, we want it back. It's like, okay, well, our tax money from the 60s and 70s built this infrastructure. The American taxpayer, you have not paid taxes or given back for that. So technically, we want our stake in it. We want it. We want the satellites. We want the social media. We want this. We're going to take it. We're going to give it to we're going to give it back to the American people.
Yes.
So the thing about it is, you're seeing massive distrust in institutions.
Yeah.
And the only thing that they had before was this, hey, just trust us. This is going to work out, right? 10, 15 years ago, everybody loved cuddly little Warren Buffett, like, oh, the Oracle of Omaha and billionaires, they made that money and they deserve it. Now it's flipped. They don't trust corporate media. They don't trust cable news. They're coming, like, I literally should not have any kind of following on Substack. I'm not a professional, like, but I'm just a guy with a master's degree who just is informed because I thought that's what you're supposed to do as an American citizen. But they distrust the people that are supposed to do this, the journalists, so much that they're now coming over here and listening to us. And that, I think, I don't care how much money you spend. I don't care how many bots there are. To Abraham Lincoln's famous quote, you can't fool all the people all the time.
All the time. Yeah.
And we are at a place where that fooling us is getting harder and harder to do. And the problem with the Trump administration, if they were savvy at politics at all, they're great at trying to grab power. And this is one thing I always say is, do not confuse brazenness with brilliance. Because they're
100%.
not the same. They're not the same thing. Is the state, i.e. the regime, cannot be wrong. Because all they had to do with Renee Good was going, well, we have to review it. We have to see, we're going to do an investigation. And it was like, no, they came right out and smeared her and everything else because that's how they operate.
And they bring JD out talking about how she's a terrorist. Well, that means that the three of us on this call are fucking terrorists.
We're terrorists now. And
right?
Again,
we are now all, Donald Trump does not consider himself the president of all of the people of the United States. He considers himself the president of MAGA. If you are not MAGA and did not vote for Trump, you are the enemy. And and everyone needs to understand that. Like
Maria Machado in Venezuela, who was supposed to be their puppet, right?
Yeah.
That Rubio put up for a Nobel Peace Prize and got it, right? Hey, we have the pretext to go in and remove Maduro and all this other stuff. Trump didn't want to nominate her because again, this is how fragile this narcissist is, because she didn't give the Nobel Peace Prize to him and refuse it.
Yeah.
You can't make this up. And now she's supposedly traveling to Washington to give him the Nobel Peace Prize. So it's like, please put me in power. Please let me be your puppet. The thing about it is what I think where the Renee Good murder is going to be a tipping point is the video got out there. We all saw it. We heard the anguish screams of her wife. We heard the physician saying, hey, let me treat her. And we've seen it. And so now I don't care what you spin. Really, at this point, is like you're just trying to hang on to this smaller and smaller base that you're holding on to. And the rest of us, but what's happening with the rest of us is we're not filled with doubt anymore. We're not filled with apprehension. We're saying like, no, they're fascists. Yeah. Like people are talking more and more like me and you and Nick. Whereas like 5 years ago, people were like, Fred, you can't say fascist. That's too much.
I was saying that the F word in 2015.
So was I. And I'm just like, shocked that people are going further than I am now. I'm like, man.
Yeah, I was I vividly recall having a conversation. I ride motorcycles, and so I was with a group of all men and me, and it was 2015, and there were just a bunch of old Harley dudes, right?
Yeah.
They were talking about they were joining labor. They were joining this organization, Labor for Trump, and I said, my friend, Labor for Trump is the equivalent of Jews for Mussolini. Let me tell you what is going to happen.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And that is 100%, 11 years later, it has been 100% accurate. That is the reality. Is we live in an environment that is engineered both from an epistemic warfare perspective, but also this idea of like fused identities and how people become in-group thinkers, right?
Yeah.
How else can you explain Nazis and Zionists in the same goddamn party? Right?
Yeah.
That is fused identity.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, when you start critiquing the leader, you've now critiqued my identity. And you are
Yes.
that is an existential threat to me as an identity in MAGA. And so that's where you get into these situations where they sacrifice their families, they sacrifice friends, they sacrifice everything for this identity that is so fragile that
Yeah.
it can't allow additional information in.
Yeah.
And all of this, 100% of this can be put at the feet of social media and Mark Zuckerberg and epistemic warfare, information warfare, algorithmic amplification of the erosion of what you know and how you know it.
Right.
So,
Well,
anybody in the audience
I
want
should
to
have a
donate?
pulpit. I need a
If
pulpit.
anybody in the audience wants to donate to the cause and help us build a bot farm, like that would be
Should we
that would
crowdfund a bot farm?
crowdfunding bot farms, open source bot farms, just fucking tearing down, because that's in reality that's probably what's going to do it. Is if we can get enough software engineers. Like, I'm a previous software engineer. I have been so fucking traumatized by that industry that I have not touched code since I left my last job. It's been over 6 months and I haven't coded since.
And it feels good.
And it feels good because I fucking was so mad all the time. But we need some insiders right now who are still coding, who are developing with AI, who are up to date on these technologies, because I can't do that. If we're out here discussing what's going on, we then need the support behind us. So we need people to start funding. And I hate saying we need, because it should have been fucking done ages ago, is funding sources for these types of efforts to flood the zone. Like I keep saying is we need to flood the zone for democracy, and we have to get on their platforms to do it, unfortunately, in a free way where we're not really paying attention to it, but it's getting done. Like bot farms kind of we have to do it eventually. We need some good white hat hackers out there and folks who want to do an open source bot farm and just fucking do it. GitHub is free and open source is free. VS Code is free. You can download all the tools. You can learn for free how to code. And if you are already doing it, fucking help. Even do it on the minimum, like free servers if you can, if you have to on AWS, but find better platforms to host it. Find out of US data centers and platforms that could help host it.
I will repost a post of where I'm taking my clients.
Okay.
Where
Absolutely.
I'm guiding my clients. It's a note that I posted, I think, at the beginning of last year. So I'll have to go back and find it.
Okay.
But I've got a list of places that are AWS alternatives that are both more sustainably run, more ethically run, and in a lot of cases offshore, so we don't run into onshore problems.
I honestly think what's gonna kick this open is when the find out hits, and it's coming soon for the Trump regime. And because it's interesting, I was talking to a friend of mine last night, and I've been thinking about, like, how did Germans feel like after World War II?
Have you read the book?
With the Nazis, and so the Nazis fall, and then you have to carry this guilt, and so and the one thing that he pointed out to me was that we're at a stage where we're resisting internally. The external resistance has not come yet, but I think with Greenland, which if they annex or they do whatever they try to do with it, that absolutely will come. Now, most of us, because again, they talk about this in very basic terms where it's like, oh, we're going to shoot at each other and everything else. It's like, That's not really how Europe gets down. What's going to be fascinating is when they start seizing American companies and their holdings, which are now international. When they start seizing like certain Americans, billionaires, and their assets. Oh, it's like, oh, well, we're going to seize this. Or the first country that arrests Mark Zuckerberg or that arrests Elon Musk.
Well,
and they say,
France
okay,
has talked about it. France
Yeah.
has talked about arresting Elon Musk because
They
he's
should.
been. He's the problem comes down to most of these countries are in a very precarious data sovereignty position. On my This Woman Votes Substack, I talk a lot of, I'm all like, politics and what the fuck is going on. But on my trustable.blog, where I write all just boring ass business shit, I have an entire series on data sovereignty and why countries like Canada are essentially digital vassals to the United States. That's the problem they're going to run into.
Yeah, and I think, but I think there's going to come a certain point where, because I think what's happening with a lot of the elites and a lot of the leaders now, is they're just hoping this will go away and that we can get back to some semblance of normal. And the problem with the Trump regime is they will keep pushing and pushing and pushing because that's what they know, because the state can't be wrong. They can't be wrong. Trump can't be wrong. So again, this happens, the murder of Renee Good. There's no investigation. There's none of this. We're just going to push. We're going to push and just keep going. We're going to label her a terrorist, and that's what's going to happen, and we're not buying it. So I think they're going to push on Greenland. They're not going to back off of it. They're just going to say, well, Trump wants it. I want it, and I can have it, so I'm going to keep pushing until I get it. And then NATO's going to be like, oh, okay, well, cool. We're going to do this now because we have no choice.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Because our citizens are going to go, oh, okay. You don't want to do anything? Cool. We'll get some people in there that will.
Yeah.
And it's at that point when we start to feel when we are cut off from the world, or Canada says, you know what, if we got to go through a digital blackout while we retool, it is what it is.
Yep.
And you are going to force these other countries to make some hard choices. And at that point, we are going to have external pressure.
Yeah.
Including internal pressure. And that's when the regime collapses. And if it has to go to that place, you're going to see, we're going to prosecute Trump and his cabinet. No. We need to prosecute Mark Zuckerberg. We need to prosecute Elon Musk. We need to prosecute all the people that brought this about. I'm starting to see so-called moderate voices now that are like, we have to prosecute MAGA from top to bottom.
Yeah.
It's going to that place, and it's going to continue, I think.
Do you remember when when Saddam Hussein gets taken down and they have to go through the de-Baathification process, right? Sort of post Saddam. I think that is part of the difficult conversation that has to go on. It's like South Africa and Truth and Reconciliation and their approach to that. Mind you, nobody really suffered under the Truth and Reconciliation. The people who should have been held accountable didn't. But we have to consider the understanding that accountability has to happen. We have been, as a country, completely allergic to accountability. Mm-hmm. There was no accountability at the end of slavery. There has never been any accountability in how we have approached any of that. We've just sort of embedded racism and all of that into systems so that, sure, your shitty uncle is a racist, but so is the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice has a giant systemic impact on an entire population. Your uncle's just a dickhead and he's going to die eventually.
Right. And I think good.
No, go ahead, Fred. Go ahead.
No, I think that it's there is a where you can measure it out almost, right? Like figuratively. That if you add in the pain that we're going to suffer.
Yep.
the tyranny we're going to experience, and the fact that literally none of this needed to happen, not the economic woes, all of this. If you make us go to this, and especially what we're going to have to do to remove you, if you make us go to that extreme, I think the whiplash from that, people aren't going to want just like, let's have a commission.
Right.
Let's have some testimony on the record. We're past that point.
There's going
That
to
was-
need
that
to
was
be
January
a war
6th.
crimes tribunal.
Yeah,
It's
that was
going to
January
be that.
6th. We did that. We tried that. That didn't work. So now we're here. So unless you're gonna have people go to prison, like my fear is, are we gonna have Nuremberg or are we gonna have the reign of terror under Robespierre? Like that's the concern I'm going, because this will end. You can't
There is
hitch
a
your
tipping
wagon.
point, right?
Yeah.
There's a tipping
Especially when
point.
the Epstein files come out and it's like, dear God, you guys have been carrying water and providing cover for these assholes. And they've been allowed, yes, and they've been allowed to do it much, much longer because you've carried water and you've covered for this. And then you add in all the other stuff.
Yeah.
I think that there's not going to be, well, because Marjorie Taylor Greene's she's already done the first one. I was duped. And Lauren Boebert's starting to do that right now.
They weren't duped.
You willingly went in.
Chose proximity to power. Every last one of these people can go fuck themselves with a hot poker. I am so over the I was duped.
Oh, the next iteration of that is going to be I was afraid.
Sorry, that was really graphic.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Like the next iteration is going to be I was afraid, and so I was
framed as absolute bullshit.
I was afraid that I would get blah blah blah. It's like, no, you weren't. You wanted to be close to power. So the thing about it is, when this ends, and it will end, because Trump is an 80-plus-year-old dementia case, and he's JD Vance and these other people are not going to be able to hold this together. But it's not going to
end with him. I think that what his end, and I continue to argue, I don't think that old man is going to make it to the midterms.
I don't think I don't think he'll make it to 2028.
Really, I hope he doesn't make it to the midterms, to be totally honest, because then constitutionally, because I still believe in the use of our constitution, and that we should be framing our discussions around how, we have a democracy, and that's what we're going to move forward back into, maybe a better one, hopefully a better one, realistically a better one. But if he does pass away, I hope it happens before the midterms, because then JD Vance is forced into a full constitutional term of a presidency and can only run
one more time,
or could only ever be elected once after that, because he would have already served a constitutional full term, because it's over 2 years. So if this old man is going, which we all know he is, just when is the question, is I hope it does happen before the midterms, because then Vance has to constitutionally be the president before to fill a full cycle. And so he cannot run he can run multiple times, but he can only ever win once. And I think limits him in a lot of ways. And I think that would be the thing that they're hoping to avoid most in all of this. And so coming up on this, because we're coming up to the top of the hour here, is a question I have on Greenland, NATO, and say aggressive actions, now that we have looping this all back into our generative AI and the military discussion. Greenland is the wet dream of the tech bros. And they want it because it offers geothermal cooling and basically an unlimited resource set to run and power data centers. Do you believe, or do you think that there is a way, and this is where I want to be action focused, not on doom and gloom, do you think there's a way that we can influence, say, Grok AI or XAI or Mecha Hitler or whatever you want to call it, or the other AI platforms, to help prevent illegal orders from being distributed as though they are legal. Because one of the things you mentioned in your article is all about the use of the AI filtering and then the like context around that AI
Yep.
filtering and what
Yep.
has been added to the discussion. So how do we influence that to prevent the US from destroying NATO and going into Greenland as best as possible?
So I think that molding the thought of Grok is doable. Most of these AIs are tuned to sort of value epistemic authority. So if you're authoritative on a subject, you end up sort of filtering through into the idea or thinking. The problem is Grok doesn't respect epistemic authority; it respects volume. Right? It is only focused on volume and engagement, and anything that has volume and engagement gets elevated and amplified. That's the real risk for the parts and pieces that are going into the military. On the other side of things, it also means that if you could shout down a Russian bot farm, it has some potential, right? I mean, taking over X with our own bot farm that is tuned to the truth, that is potential. But I mean, you're talking about an enormous amount of funding and an enormous amount of sort of bandwidth. But it is absolutely doable. I think that if the billionaires were smart, they would be doing what they needed to do to get what they needed out of Greenland directly and not fucking with Donald Trump. Right? Because they are their own sovereign entities. But the idea that they give a shit about the environment,
no,
it's probably a little more generous than they deserve.
Yeah, I'm not saying at least they want to go to Greenland not because of the environment, but because it's a renewable source
it's
that
renewable
they don't.
cold.
Yeah,
right?
it's renewable for them to be able
Yeah.
to keep their data centers cold and power without worrying about some outside influence. It's
Yeah.
almost a self-contained system. Because you can use the heating like Amazon does. They use the cooling elements from their, or like the heating elements from their data centers underneath some of their buildings to heat the building, and then they recapture the energy and they do a closed cycle. As it's a cool system. I'm not complaining about that system. I think it's fantastic. I think we should have things like that, but we should not be invading sovereign nations to do it.
Right.
I mean,
we should be doing treaties on governmental entities, and this is where I think you are really making the point, Rachel, is national. We have to nationalize certain industries because they should not be privately owned. Defense should not be privately owned.
Sovereign infrastructure.
Yeah.
Nobody should own sovereign infrastructure.
Yeah. I think this is often where I was like, where we get kind of lost in the sort of nuts and bolts of things. And one thing as a student of history and working in really heavy manpower sectors and dealing with a lot of it, like I was in the sort of middle position where I've dealt with executives all the way up to the CEOs of companies, all the way down to the front line.
Yep.
And there was a move once where somebody was, making a move to go do this. And I said, man, that doesn't make any sense. Like, logically you make more money and do this, and this. And somebody said, Fred, at a certain point, these guys have so much money. It's not about money anymore. It's about ego.
Yeah.
And because again, we could sit here and go, why wouldn't you go to Antarctica? Or like, why wouldn't you go here? There's all kinds of places in the world that you can do the same thing, but that literally do not run into the problem of invading a sovereign country.
Like Alaska.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you could go like all kinds of places.
But it doesn't have the geothermal effects that Greenland does. There's a specific thing that they want.
But to Rachel's point, you could buy this and do that. The thing about it is it's about ego. Like, oh,
Yep.
I got the most powerful man in the world to do what I want,
Yep.
and to like, like Elon Musk is long since stopped. Like, I want to be known as the Tony Stark and advance humanity. It's like, no, he just wants to do K and have a bunch of kids and, flex and like have people like fake bots adore him on social media. It's pure narcissism.
Yeah.
And and the problem is, like, for us, we say, man, it can't be that simple. Like, it can't be that, because the stakes are so high. And it's like, yeah, that's why these people, to Nick's point and your point, Rachel, they shouldn't have control over these sovereign systems. They shouldn't have this much wealth to have this control over us, because when one of them loses it, or multiple, they put the whole world at risk.
Right.
Yeah. It can't be like, yo, man, the guy who's running, X, is, the Secretary General of X is acting like an idiot. Well, let's replace him and get another Secretary General. It's like, we're not going to do any of that, but we don't have that. And that's the problem. I think what's changing, though, and if there is a glimmer of hope, people they're starting to understand what this threat is.
Yes.
It's not about parties anymore. It's about us versus them. It's about it's about billionaires versus everyone else.
They're starting to see the whips and chains.
Yeah.
Right.
They're starting.
And
Exactly.
That's what I've said this before. I'll say it just kind of in closing. If Black people could have ended white supremacy, it had been done a long time ago.
Oh, God, yeah.
It is up to white people to recognize our own fucking enslavement and end this bullshit. It is not white versus Black. We should not be attacking one another. What we should be doing is really thinking about who is holding the whip, because it ain't us.
Yep. 100%.
So with that, I think that's a great place to end it on. Is we need to. There's a reason Nick Paro spends so much time talking about white supremacy and bringing on white men or white women who are actively fighting against it, because that's my lane. I can stay, as the military taught me, watch your lane. Watch your lane. Stay in your lane. That means observe your field of fire where you are the most impactful for, and you can help everyone else. I can talk about men's issues. I can talk about whiteness. I can talk about tech and the things that we're doing here. And that's what Rachel, that's what Fred are doing. And I want you both to be able to sell your platforms, promote yourselves as best as you can here. And Rachel, we're going to continue our discussions as we have started doing more of. Thank you for sending me those articles. I'd love to see like hosting platforms and things, because
I'll track down that. It's an old post, but I'll track it down.
I was a senior DevOps engineer, so I do know how to build these things, and I know how to use AI to help me build these things too. That said, if we want to actually have tools like this where we can flood the zone for democracy on X and on Meta and things like that, or wherever, you have to people have to help fund us. So Rachel, or have to help support us and have to get our work out there so that people can see us and see it. So Rachel, how can people support you?
They can show up, check any of my links. I've got up to 70% off paid subscribers. I'm not looking necessarily to fund things. I am looking to get my little orange check so I can be perceived as a legitimate provider of information, because we're all chasing legitimacy, right?
Well, we'll have a talk. I think we'll have a talk, Rachel. We'll have a talk.
I just want my little orange check so I can be a legitimate provider of information.
You are a legitimate provider of information. We'll talk. We'll talk right after this show.
All right.
Let's have a discussion here, just for a couple minutes, Rachel, because I do want to support your work, because it's really important. Like the GenAI stuff, like we've talked about it on Palin Talk. We're talking about it here. Like, I really just want to get this information out there so that we know and we're prepared and we know how to action against it. So please support Rachel in her efforts to get that and help make others see her as legitimate as she already is. And so help her grow. Fred, how about you, my friend, with missives of a middle-aged man?
That's it. This is from Middle-Aged Man, Frederic Poag. I'm currently running a special. It was 46 for 2026, and then I half that, and I'm probably going to keep that for the rest of the year. But I write about culture, I write about politics, I write about philosophy, but Nick Paro at Banner and Backbone's doing a lot of good work. Shane Urich at the Firebrand Project. There's so many other creators. I mean, I've met Rachel for This Woman Votes. I've really loved some of your stuff. I always say, put me last in the order. Go subscribe to them, help them get their orange check mark, so then they can be like, "Man, was this worth it?" Like, I don't know, So, but yeah,
I don't know. That Afeni Shakur post had me had my DMs blowing up.
But that's why you're doing something good.
Yeah.
But other than that, you'll find me on Notes. I'm kind of a rabble rouser. I tend, being a former veteran, or I'm a veteran, former Marine.
Former veteran, are you dead and back?
Yes. Kind of.
Kind of.
I mean, but I generally I try to be a pain in the ass for democracy. And that's my lane.
I love it. I love it. Thanks, Fred. And finally, support Banner and Backbone so that we can help do some amazing things, put these shows together, get creators things like orange check marks, and spread their content, and have some incredible interviews. If anybody is a paid subscriber to Jen Bud or has a contact for her, I would be glad to reach out, but I'm not a paid subscriber, so I can't DM her here on Substack, and I don't currently have a way to reach out to her. But if anybody is and wants to, I would be happy to bring Jen Bud on for a discussion around ICE and white supremacy built into DHS in that system, because I think that's super important. And things like that can happen here on Banner and Backbone. So help me build this so that we can get more folks out there and build voices and build the new media sphere that actually gets the truth and spreads content in a quick, efficient, and meaningful way. So thanks everyone for being here on this extra episode of Powerful Voices this week, with Rachel from This Woman Votes and Frederic Poag from Missives from a Middle-Aged Man. I'm Nick Paro. This is Banner and Back.